Breaking news, everyone. Apparently not everything you see on Instagram is real. Now, of course, we've talked a lot about Instagram and social media and how people promote themselves in a certain way that's not necessarily their real selves on these platforms. However, this particular case of the two Quebecians, or Quebecois?
Quebecois? Yeah.
Is that how you would properly say it?
Are they from Quebec?
Yes. Women were arrested with over $30 million worth of cocaine that they were trying to smuggle when they docked in Sydney, Australia. What's interesting about this story is that they were promoting their little getaway on Instagram. And they also happen to be very attractive. Now, they were traveling, after 2 months of traveling the world on luxury cruise ships, the MSC Princess, Melina Roberge, who's 22 years old, and Isabelle Lagacé, who's 28 years old, faced life in prison after Australian police found a combined 200 pounds of cocaine in their suitcases.
Whoa.
Yeah. This is Australia's largest ever cocaine bust on a plane or a boat.
And it was just two
It's just two
girls.
young, very attractive girls that travel the world and showcase all the cool places they go to. And what's interesting is because they had like this one photo that's now been taken down off Instagram because I found their Instagram page, saying like, oh, greatest vacation ever. Like a classic, like, oh, I hate this person because she's having so much more fun than me photo that people post on Instagram.
Yes.
When you're like stuck at work, even though Los Angeles is pretty awesome, but let's say you're living in, Idaho or something and it's kind of cold. And
I've heard
see
Idaho
people,
is beautiful.
And you see, okay, stop trying to be nice about Idaho.
I've literally heard that.
Okay, but like you see these people that are like, oh, I'm just in Ibiza right now. And they never say Ibiza, they always say Ibiza, because that's the proper way to say it. Turns out some people get to those places by different means. In the case of these two women, by smuggling 200 pounds of cocaine in suitcases. I don't even understand how. The logistics of how that could even work. So good on them for that, but
well, also bad on them. That's illegal, and they're facing a life imprisonment. So
cocaine is a terrible drug.
Okay, so Hassan, I have a couple questions for you about this story. Does it seem like they took this trip explicitly to smuggle the drug? Too much cocaine. My mouth is just numb. I'm kidding. I don't do that drug. But what I was going to say is, did they go on this trip explicitly to
smuggle the cocaine? Yes.
Yeah, so it was basically an elaborate ruse. They were posting these Instagram photos saying that they were going on this vacation, and really the whole time it was not a vacation, but actually it was professional. It was business.
Yes, it was a bit. Yeah, when the Australian authorities
business
were like,
or pleasure.
Are you here for business or pleasure?" And they were like, a bit of both. Or no, they were like, a bit of both, because we are Quebecois.
That's so terrible.
So many different terrible accents. I apologize for all of the people that I've offended currently. Okay, but I wanted to talk about something in this story.
Okay.
Like I alluded to already, like social media is not necessarily what people really do in their real lives, or you don't really get to see the backstory, the background of how they got to a particular place. And a lot of times, especially because we live in LA, we are familiar with people that go and travel the world. Right? And they post photos, like they'll go to Mexico, for example, for a weekend. And they're like, look at this awesome villa I'm in Mexico. I am making a very specific,
exactly what
very
you're talking
specific story about a particular individual that we both know.
This is so uncomfortable, but please go on.
And you're like, oh my God, like Mexico's so great. Like, I'm so glad I got to take a week off from my, really rigorous regimen to go and party in Mexico all on my own. And you're thinking, well, you live in like, a shoebox of an apartment. How are you affording this? And to lift the veil a little bit, everyone, there are a lot of people that I know, and Grace knows as well, that go to these places because there are independent financiers that fly them out there.
So here's my question for you then. Are you equating, yes, Hassan and I do know people who are very attractive, and so people want to be in their company because they like being around pretty people, and so they will finance their trip to these places.
Yes.
And so
with the hopes that they may or may not, something may cultivate more than just like a just like a platonic relationship, let's say.
Right, but also it's just good for the photos if you have like pretty people in your photos in a pretty location. It makes that person that financed the trip look cool.
A lot of times those people, at least the ones that I do know of that I won't mention here, they don't want to appear in photos. They don't really handle social media at all. They, like I said, they want to cultivate a relationship that's a little bit more personal.
Okay, fair. My question for you is, are you equating people that we know that do that go on these, free trips to drug smugglers?
No, but what I was trying to, no, but that's a fair question.
Okay.
No, what I was trying to say is, not everything you see is real. And if you feel really upset or jealous that like these people that you follow on Instagram or in other social media platforms are out there, let's say on a Burning Man trip, for example, and they're flying out there on a private jet, and you're like, you're 23 years old. Like, how are you on a private jet right now? You understand that, like, on the other side of the camera, there is a very different picture happening. It's not usually that isn't to say that there aren't extremely successful 23-year-olds out there that are doing this, but in more cases than none, or in a majority of these instances, it's usually backed by very rich people that have a vested interest in having those other attractive people around.
Okay. Yeah, I think that that's a really good point, and I definitely see why you wanted to talk about this story, because I think especially in Los Angeles, you do have to sort through some of the bullshit of Instagram, and we just hope for our viewers that when you are posting things on Instagram, just to be mindful of what is real and what isn't, and also don't get involved in like a drug smuggling ring.
Don't do it.
And if you do which
not
you
smuggle
shouldn't,
200 pounds of cocaine into Australia.
Don't do this, because I mean these are young girls that are facing
life in prison.
Right, their life in prison. So be responsible.
I like the contrast of like the photo in this article, the New York Mag article of like their Instagram of them having, pineapples or coconuts or whatever. And then on the other side is like, this is the photo that the Department of Immigration in Australia posted on their Instagram. And it's just a bag full of cocaine, like a suitcase full of pounds of coke.
Don't be dumb and live life out in the real world. Don't worry about Instagram.
But we want to hear what you guys think. Do you believe the things that you see in social media? Are you a frequent poster and abuser of this sort of like, I have a much better life than I currently do mentality? Leave us your thoughts in the comment section below. I'm Hassan Piker. This is Grace Baldridge. And we'll see you next time on Pop Trigger.